Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about exam week. My son is in middle school, 6th grade, but I make these videos more for myself as well as you all who are watching and are interested in understanding how I do our exam week throughout our homeschool journey. So I'm going to put a video up in a card somewhere on the left or right hand side right about now. But that card will go back to a video where I explained the exam week and how I did it for my son's 5th grade year. So that process is very similar to what I will be discussing today, but I would use that more of in the elementary school years, like maybe 3rd through 5th grade. But this video, I'm going to focus on what I would like to continue doing for my son's middle school year, 6th through the 8th grade. Can things change? Will they change? More than likely they will. If so, we'll just have to adjust, be flexible, and make it work for wherever we are within our homeschool journey. So for our exam week, today we're going to talk about my approach. We're going to talk about the content that I use for our exam, how I brainstorm and come up with those questions. Do we study? Do we do cramming? Do we do reviews prior to exams? I'll also talk about the format of our exam week, the layout, the flow, how I assess, do I time him? We're going to talk about it all. So go ahead, grab a cup of coffee, some tea, a glass of wine, cold water, whatever beverage you want to get. Grab it, get a pen, a notepad, and let's chat. So when I say an exam at this point in time, this is more of our midterm exam. You can call it mid-year, you can call it a term exam, you can call it a semester exam. At the end of each semester, our semesters are 5 to 6 months. That's when we will have our exam where we kind of do a comprehensive exam of what we've discussed, all the topics, concepts that we have gone through for those 5 to 6 months. At the end of the year, you can call it a final exam, a semester 2 exam, a year-end exam, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the year, we do the same thing for the last 5 to 6 months of what we've learned throughout our homeschool journey. Keep in mind, we do homeschool year-round. We normally take a break for about a month within the summer. We also have breaks throughout our homeschool year. It just depends. I schedule those breaks in, I would say, at least once every month. We have a few days and or maybe once every 6-7 weeks of straight hitting it hard with our schooling, we'll have a week off. But again, we're flexible. Sometimes we take it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we keep going. Sometimes we take an extended break. It just depends what's going on with everybody involved. So again, regardless if it's mid-year or if it's year end, the final exam, the information I'm talking to you about today is everything I actually do. Again, the goal is to do this throughout his middle school year, and I will continue it throughout his high school year, or I may change my approach. So today let's talk about my approach. Let me first say, when it comes to tests and quizzes within our home, in the elementary years, I did not do that for my son for the purpose of keeping grades. So we did lots of reviews. If you watched any of my videos, you will see that our homeschool style is discussion based. We have a lot of oral reviews that take place. And if I give him a quiz or a test, however you want to call that, I did not take or provide those for the purpose of maintaining a grade and providing him a grade. That was not the intent. But for the middle school years, absolutely. We are giving grades, or not giving. He's going to earn his grades. He does have tests, he does have quizzes, they are graded, they are given a numerical score and a letter grade. And I will do a different video on how I do all of that stuff there. But for our quizzes and for our reviews, we take various approaches when it comes to how we assess using a test or a quiz. More than likely, it's not just sitting there at a desk with a piece of paper answering questions. It's normally oral, and if it is written, it is open-ended. We use Kahoot, we use Quizlet, and I will do a video on Kahoot and how we utilize that in our homeschool for quizzes, reviews, tests, and things of that nature. But for the purpose of this video, when we talk about exam week, the exam week is not meant, at least for us, it's not meant to kind of catch our children in terms of what they don't know. It's to celebrate what they have learned. It's to celebrate all the information, the feast of information that they learn themselves through their independent journey. And what we've discussed, what they've watched, what they've learned about using different methods and techniques that we use within our own homeschool, may it be within our home or may it be outside of our home, with their participation in various activities or events. The exam week, again, is just to make sure that everything that they learned throughout that specified time period, for us, it's about 5 to 6 months. Again, we do have reviews and tests and quizzes to assess his knowledge throughout the school year using various approaches. But when it's time for our mid-year, midterm, and when it's time for our final exam, everything we've learned about comes back and we discuss it. Exam week is, again, all about the information that he's mastered. It's all about the information that he cares about, the information that drew him in an effort to learn more about a particular topic or subject. It's about the information or the knowledge that we've gained and the rabbit trails that were left behind. Not even left behind. We went down various rabbit trails based on a particular subject or topic. And some of the information that we will have within our exam week are also things he struggled with, things he should know, but he had a little bit of a struggle with it, or things that he excels in, things that it may not be as comfortable with. And again, I do leave room for him to also talk about the things that are most important to him based on what he has learned during his project weeks, based on what he has learned based on his independent studies, things that he may have learned himself without me being present. We have a conversation before exam week, and I kind of find out what are those things that you have gained knowledge about on your own that I may not be aware of. We talk about those things, and then I actually jot some of those things down, do my own little research, and I will bring it right back as part of our exam week. So again, it's not to, it should not be used as a gotcha moment. It should not be used as a way to frustrate your children. For me, exam week is just another method of assessing the body of knowledge that my child should have at that specified period of time based on what we've learned within our homeschool, based on our scope and sequence, based on what I've planned, based on the curriculum we've used to include that body of knowledge that he has gained based on what he has done on his independent days, his independent studies, on his own time. Let's talk about content. What's on the actual exam? So for our exams, we will hit all subjects. We will do our math, our science, our language arts and writing, our social studies. Social studies, includes your geography, world history, It includes your U.S. history, for me at least. It includes African American history. It includes African studies. We'll also include our Bible, our electives, which encompasses Bible. Currently, we're doing logic. Currently, we're doing personal finance as our electives. So those things are inclusive within our exam week. So the content that should be on your exam, again, at least is how we do it, should encompass everything you've touched on in terms of a subject. The bare bones subjects that you are teaching within your homeschool, that's what you want your exam to include. Now, for us, we're not going to talk about every little thing that we discussed underneath the umbrella of all of these subjects. I actually pick and choose what I want to do. And that leads me right into how I develop our questions for the exam. I actually use a brainstorming method. Now, let me tell you, throughout the year, as we are learning information and as we have a feast of knowledge in front of us that we are just so hungry and thirsty to learn more about, I actually jot down some of the things that at that time, I think I want to bring back up during our exam week. So if we're talking about a topic, or if my son brings up a subject that he is really engaged in, or if I find something that my son has spent a lot of time on because he struggled a little bit throughout that quarter or week or month with, I will jot those things down, and then I will come back and I will do a little brainstorming activity where I will then decide, out of all of those things that I've jotted down throughout the year, what do I want to focus on? Let me show you my quick little brainstorming activity that I did. And excuse this little purple thingy here. That's where my camera is sitting on, and you can see the end of it. So apologies for that if it's a little bit distracting. But this is my little brainstorming activity where I gathered all the notes that I wrote throughout the year. And then in the middle, I just put what semester the exam will be for based on the ideas that I put out. I put the content of the exam, which is all the different subjects, electives, math, science, social studies, and English language arts. And then I put out everything I wrote down on every sticky note or on every notebook paper. I actually have a little notebook that I keep all this information in, and it has sticky notes and reminders and all that other good stuff. You know, sometimes when you have a quick thought, you want to jot something down real quick. So I do that on sticky notes and I attach it to whatever page I'm working on within my little notebook that helps me organize my thoughts. But this here again shows you everything I put down. As an example, for math, circumference, radius, square root, powers, fractions, decimals, percentages, single variable equations, also called linear equations, PEMDAS, integers. Here we are for science, DNA, RNA, skeletal system, muscular system, digestive system, some of the 5th grade concepts for science, whatever we spoke about last year for science. Social studies, I have down South America, country labeling, 5 themes of geography, identify U.S. states and capitals. I have natural resources, landforms. What else do I have here? Current events, time zones, Christopher Columbus, Bill of Rights, the Constitution. For English language arts, I have vocab, spelling, what is the research process, character analysis, book analysis, cursive, typing, grammar concepts, brainstorm, outline for writing prompt. I also have sentence dictation, reading assessment. For electives, I have logic, Bible. I have here current events, personal finance, present presentations. So that's everything I wrote. So now what I want to do is I want to take this information, and I'm going to look through our curriculum, either curriculum we're currently using, resources we're currently using, or resources that I am not currently using, but I have available just in case I want additional practice, or if we want to learn something from a different perspective or learn a different method of doing things. So I go through that, and then I decide what questions I want to pull from those resources or curricula for each one of these concepts or topics for this particular subject. Talk about study guides, study skills, study days. When we're having exams, do I just, say, okay, son, it's exam week. Let's go. Here's this pack of paper. Here's 30 questions. Get to it, 2 hours. No, I don't do it like that, right? As a homeschooler, we have the opportunity, or as homeschooling families, we have the opportunity to be flexible, to tailor how we want to do things in order to make our journey an experience. I want my son's exam week to be an experience as well. I do want to make sure that he has a little bit of pressure. I do want to make sure he has a little bit of flexibility, that he has a little bit of freedom. I make sure that the method and approaches that we use, and you'll hear that later on in this video, for the exam allows him to go through, or allows him to gain experience in all of those various things I just mentioned. Experience in having a flexible test, a test that offers a little bit of pressure, a test that may be a little difficult, one that may be super easy, something that's timed, something that's not timed. I want to give him an array during exam week. But how do I prepare him for exam week before we get there? Well, since the 5th grade, I've been doing study guides. So at the end of each quarter, what I will do is I will give my son a study guide that says for science, for math, for social studies, for electives, writing, language arts, whatever our subjects were. I will say, this is everything we've learned for that particular subject. And then I would make sure that on his study days, at least once a week, he has a study day for 1 to 2 hours where he's supposed to sit down and go through those study guides that he has already received. He can add to the study guides just to make sure. Where are you going? Where are you going? Okay, no problem. Just to make sure that he understands how to study. Just to make sure he understands what it means to study, what it means to concentrate, what it means to focus. How do you write notes properly? Where do you find notes? How can you outline your written notes? How do we record notes? We go through all of that, and that's called study skills. That's part of our electives within our home, but it's not an actual course. It's just a part of something that we do. It's a part of habits. It's just habit training, something that's natural. Okay. So again, he gets a quarterly study guide. At the end of each quarter, I notate everything he's learned, or everything he was supposed to learn or know or gain knowledge of for every single subject. And then during his study days, which is once a week, he will go over that and he will add to it. We talk about, again, note taking, how to take proper notes. He has to take notes as I lecture. We do lecture style teaching also, where I'm talking, he's writing, or I write on the board. He has to copy what I have written. And then I make sure what he has written makes sense. He goes through the process of highlighting, underlining, erasing, rewriting, just to make sure it makes sense. We talk about time of day in terms of study. the length of time, how much time do you want to allot for studying on a particular day, how to decide what you should study, so that when he's preparing for a test or a quizzes are normally pop quizzes, so he doesn't really know when that's going to happen, but he does know when his test will be administered, so he will properly prepare himself, his mind as well, for taking those types of assessments. So again, he is prepared. We go through the process of proper study skills in order to ensure that he is mentally ready to take an exam that is normally longer in terms of the number of questions and also the length of time during our exams. These are no-nos. We do not cram, we do not review, and we do not teach to the exam, okay? I do not do that. So our exams are normally the last week before we go on a long break. So I'm not cramming, reviewing concepts, or going back and teaching specific things to make sure he remembers a week or 2 weeks before. I'm not doing that. But again, if he has study guides, if he has study days, if we have a lot of communication throughout the learning process, I am right there with him. I know what he knows. I know what he does not know. I make sure that when he gets a problem incorrect, even if it's one problem, even if he still has an A on that particular assignment, test, quiz, project, or whatever, he is required to redo it. Depending on the situation, he will get half a credit or he will earn no credit. Your grade remains the same. It just depends on the subject, the concept, and what's taking place and why he got it wrong. But again, we do not cram before the exam. We do not do a review. I do not create a study guide. I do not teach to the exam before the actual mid-year and final exams. Now let's talk about the layout and the format of how I like to do our exams, okay? Also, let me say, I do expect him to know the information that I'm providing on the exam. Of course, based on his mental and emotional capacity, I determine how I should best administer the exam, but my son doesn't have difficulty in those areas. So I expect him, again, to know the information. Every year I take inventory of where my children are, and I adjust our homeschooling, our approach, style, the curriculum we're using, the resources we're using, our routine, schedule, the courses I'm teaching. I will tailor all of those things to fit my children's individual needs. So I say that to say this: be flexible. Even with your exams, even with your approach, always be flexible. Let me see. So back to layout and format. Our exam, just like the majority of our tests and quizzes, do not include multiple choice. They do not include fill in the blank. However, that approach is, again, used for exams. Just like our tests and quizzes, the majority of them, I would say like 80% of them, our exams do not include multiple choice. They do not include fill in the blank. I am just not a strong proponent on those things. Now, again, some of our tests and our quizzes will include that, but for the exam, I completely stray away. For our exam week, and if you don't know, if I did not mention this, our exam week is an actual week, and it can take 4 to 5 days, okay? But the exam week layout and format includes oral exams. I'm asking him a question, and he has to narrate information back to me. It may include identifying or labeling information and then explaining them. It may be explaining a process. It includes critical thinking questions. It includes analysis. It includes compare and contrast. It includes a lot of application, and he can also have written format. Okay, some of the questions, his responses may have to be in written format. We also, for our format, we use note cards for responses. I may write a question on a note card and he has to respond on the other side of the note card. I may put a picture on a note card on both sides of the cards, and then on one side he has to do one activity and on the other side he has to do another activity. I can do that on a piece of paper or a note card. I just like to give him varying formats so that the exam is not really boring. Sometimes he has to record his responses via video, or he has to do voice recording for the response. Also, in terms of essays, he has to do the entire process: brainstorming, outline, draft. He has to do his edits and things of that nature, provide a final a deliverable, either typed or either written in cursive. It just depends. But I say all that to say, again, the format and layout, I like to use a multitude of options. Just apologies for the lighting, it's getting a little dark, but we're going to continue the conversation. So a part of the layout and format, sometimes he'll also have presentations. So for his semester project, he had to do something with logic, where he had to, well, I won't even tell you that. Just know that a part of his exam week includes presentations of his semester project. And he has semester projects each semester. So in addition, he'll get multiple questions per subject. He will then choose which questions he wants to do. So let's say for science, I will give him 10 questions. I may put those questions on index cards. He will have to choose 6 out of the 10 questions in which he will provide response to. He will only be allowed to see the front of the card where it will be a topic. So maybe 3 cards will say skeletal system, something will say RNA, DNA, something will say digestive system, something may say earth science. We may have something about a specific thing that he learned about that he told me sometime during the semester, and I'm giving him an opportunity to tell me everything he wants to know about it. So he will only see the front of the card and he will have to choose 6. When he flips those 6 cards over, he will then realize what the questions are and how I want the response back. Again, some of those responses will have the questions and it will say your response must be provided in writing. Your response must be provided via an upload on Seesaw. Look up right now. I'll also put a card where I talk to you about how we utilize Seesaw and Google Classroom within our homeschool. He can flip over another card and it will say, you will have a worksheet, come see your parent for the worksheet, whatever it is. But again, as you can see with the layout and format, the approach is to provide various methods of assessments so that he becomes comfortable with that. And then he will also have the flexibility of choosing what questions he wants to provide response to based on what he's most interested in or based on what he's most knowledgeable about. So all the 10 questions will hit on all the areas that I showed you on my brainstorming activity that I've done. So I'm going to cover everything that I think we need to, but he will then have an opportunity to choose which ones he wants to do. We do not do that with math, and we do not do that with language arts and writing. He will have a set number of questions to do that will encompass everything that we have learned throughout the semester to include the prior year. Same thing goes for English language arts and writing. For math, he has 10 minutes to write down everything he remembers after he quickly scans the exam. So when I give him that math exam, I'll give him 10 minutes And then again, he scans the math exam, sees everything the exam is going to be about. And then within that same allotted time, 10 minutes, he will have to jot down on a piece of paper all the formulas he remembers, information that he needs to recall. He cannot look at notes. He cannot look at his curriculum. He cannot look at anything. He's going off of memory. And then he will start his math exam. But again, he decides which exams he will take on each day as well. Again, that's except for math and English language arts. So when I give him his cards for science, or I give him his cards for social studies or electives or whatever, on my whiteboard, which is magnetic, I will post the subject on the board, and I will insert a clip, if I remember right, right now, sometime between this conversation. Again, if I remember, I will post a clip of what the board looks like for exam week and what I mean by posting the subject on the board. But I will basically print the subject on a piece of paper, put it on the board, and he will have to decide what subjects he's going to do on what day. So my board will say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, whatever those days of the week that we're doing our exam on. And then he will take the paper with the subjects on it, and he will determine, what do I want to do on Monday? What do I want to do on Tuesday? What do I want to do on Wednesday? So he will make that determination, and he can change the order in which he does it as he goes throughout the week. And I do that again to give him another opportunity to have flexibility in when he takes his exam, because I want him to be comfortable. I want him to feel prepared. I don't want too much anxiety. So that gives him, again, another opportunity to make a decision. But again, that's not done with math, and that's not done with English language arts or writing. Those tech exams are provided on specified days. They all have allotted time slots or time periods, and I need to be present for each of those just in case he has questions or anything like that. Okay, for his presentations, for his semester presentations, we normally do that during family day, or we normally do that before we eat our dinner sometime during that week. In terms of the allotted time, like I mentioned earlier in this video, some exams are given a time and some are not. The majority are not, but I don't give him all day to complete an exam. The exams can range from 30 minutes, 15 minutes, to 3 hours. If it's a recording, if it's writing something down or labeling, those are pretty quick. And he will do multiple exams throughout or within one day. It just depends on how he wants to do them. But for our math, he gets 3 hours. And for our English language arts and writing, he gets 3 hours. And more than likely, when he does his math exam and when he does his language arts writing exam, they're done on different days, and no other exam takes place during the days in which he takes those specific exams. But again, guys, everything can change. We are extremely flexible here. So what does the flow look like? Again, I explained that to you. He decides what days he wants to do what. He can do multiple exams on one day. If he has 6 questions for science, 6 questions for social studies, he can do 3 on one day, 3 on the other day. He can combine 3 questions for science, 3 questions for social studies, take an elective question and do that in one day. I don't care how he does it. As long as you get it done, buddy, I'm good. But again, for the math and for the English language arts and writing, those are more restrictive in terms of the allotted time he gets and when I want those done. How do I assess his exams? Well, they're graded. Okay, they get numerical grades and they get a letter grade. Some of them will not have, a numerical or letter grade. It'll just be points. It just depends on what the content is. It just depends on what's taking place. As an example, if he has 6 questions Each of those questions, some may be worth 25 points, some may be worth 5 points, some may be worth 15 points. I just put a percentage based on the complexity and the level of effort that it will take to provide the response that I need for that question. Let me go to math really quick. For math, a lot of times for our exams, what I'll do is I will write down a problem. I will actually solve the problem, and he has to tell me why that problem is correct or incorrect and explain to me why, and if it's incorrect, where was the error? I found in doing that he is able to articulate himself very well, and he's able to find all the little errors. So I also do that type of stuff with our math exam. And for English language arts, we will do a lot of editing. We will do dictation. I will have him read stuff that he hasn't read before to determine if he can use context clues, if he can compare and contrast characters, if he can find syntax errors. I will determine his fluency and speed and accuracy of reading. We do a lot of that with those types of exams as well. So I just wanted to throw that out to you. So we also have rubrics for our writing portion. So it's, it just depends. The assessment just depends. It's not a one size fits all. So what do we do when all this is done? Woohoo! We celebrate. Woohoo! We celebrate, guys. Celebrate. Have fun. I never provide him his grades right after. When he takes his break, his vacation, his extended vacation, I do the same thing, but mine's a little bit shorter because I have to come back and, grade. I assess what's taking place within our homeschool. I determine any learning gaps. I determine if there were any patterns in terms of information that he has not mastered. I just assess our homeschool progress. I assess his progress. I then generate his mid-year report card. I discuss it with my husband. And then when we come back for the new year, we're all fresh. We start that first week slow, moving on into second semester, just like we slowly move on into the beginning of the school year. And we talk about what the grades were. We talk about what the assessment was. We talk about what we can do better. We talk about our successes, our accomplishments, lessons learned. We refocus, re-energize, make changes and tweaks to curriculum, to resources, to schedules, routines, and all that other good stuff. So I hope this video was a benefit. I hope you learned at least one new thing. And as always, y'all, if you have any questions, comments for me, leave them in the description box. Not description box. I'm always saying description box, y'all. Leave them in the comment box below. And as always, be blessed and make it a great day. Bye.